Well, we all understand the fundamentals of position and power. There has to be some form of controls and stuff like that. But when those forms of controls are costing people their lives, are causing people and costing people in more ways than one. And then the government's coming out and spending, like, I'll take the Ashburton tragedy for an instance. The extremism which resulted from the ACC staff member who got killed at Henderson. The same actions were put into place, security guards. All of society was then singled out and attacked. Trespass notices, the paranoid, psycho, schizophrenic behaviours, where all of society gets the blame for what this person did, and the people who are in their employ and the amount of money that they're spending carrying out this organised crime behaviour. Somebody's lining their pockets with all this shit. This is where criminal conflict is costing taxpayers lots of money. And that's why people in positions of power don't have any logic, reason or common sense. And the people they employ are extremists. Everything is on fear and violence. Everything is on be frightened. I mean, it's just how everything is just built. People who want to make themselves look something that they're not. We're trying to protect you. Like, fuck. I mean, you see, you'd be better off asking a blowfish to protect you if you're going to expect a government or a police force to do that. At the end of the day, individual cases that end up in death or violence, they can't be foreseen in a lot of ways. And treating everybody like they're bad people, like they've committed a crime, like they've done something wrong, or to prevent people from having an argument with somebody or a dispute or a debate is in itself criminally insane by those in power. But I want you to all look at how much money they're spending on security guards and all these amenities to beef up security. And I'm not joking you, it blows your mind. It's tens of millions every year based on one person carrying out the most heinous of crimes, right? Now, there should have been, I mean, you say you've all heard of human resources. I'm not sure exactly what they do, like, but there should be people who actually can work on this and not have anybody killed, but they don't, because they're either too demented, too deranged, too delusional, or it doesn't suit their purpose to come up with peaceful solutions, because conflict seems to make everybody money. Crime seems to make everybody money. I mean, governments are prime examples of that. But let's go to the Ashburton tragedy. Now, we've seen it all at ACC. Now, on the other hand, banks used to behave like that. You know, big screens and big bars and all the rest of it. Now you walk into a bank, it's like everyone is so open to customers and clients and all the rest of it. And then you've got the government departments working on the opposite direction. You know, a WINS office. It's like there's a tragedy. A tragedy that would have cost very, very little to resolve. A tragedy that proves there's not one person in their employ or in their administrations with 1 ounce of fucking logic, reason or common sense. And then the government comes out and spends tens of millions of dollars beefing up security and handing out thousands of trespass notices and literally trying to turn everybody who has a dispute or an argument or is frustrated or is angry about something, and then literally shutting them out, and they've got no one to talk to, and then they have to run around all these people in and get these advocates and all this shit. I've never seen so many fucking misfits in my entire life as I've seen in New Zealand within their ACC Crown and Government employ. It's they think that every dispute or every argument or every debate has to be violence. I don't get it. I don't know how someone's speaking can hurt someone and put them in a life-threatening, dangerous situation. It's a fucking joke show. But this is exactly how it works with these fucking wankers. Paula Bennett and the national government should have been all criminally charged for how they handled the Ashburton tragedy. Instead, they come around trying to attack their victims through bullying and abuse and threats and intimidation, harassment and criminal harassment. Literally, any victim who is what they class as complicated, or that they want to literally deem as they're a danger to us. Why? They're trying to back their victims into a corner. This is all part and parcel of their criminal, bullying and abusive natures and mentalities. But I want you all to ask yourselves, why was so many millions spent after the tragedy to what would have cost very little before the tragedy? So now what you have is all these Crown and Government departments that are paranoid. Some of them are schizophrenics. Some of them are delusional. Some of them are deranged. Whatever happened to customer services? Seriously. Because this is really what it comes down to. It's all about the people you employ, and it's all about the extreme measures of legislation that the government sets down. That there's no one with any logic, reason or common sense to actually say, hold on, this is the easiest way around this. And we all agree that there has to be some form of policies, procedures and protocols, and some form of legislation, and some form of controls. When that control becomes criminal, to the point of criminal, that's when you end up with disasters. That's when you end up with tragedies. That's when you end up with last resort situations. That's when you end up with, I don't know the answer to it all. But the amount of money the government spends on it is bloody ridiculous. And the amount of victims of it, it's not just within their Crown and Government departments. It's the victims that they're abusing, harassing, criminally harassing, stalking, slandering, labelling, defaming, so they can win the day, so they can get away with holding their victims criminally to blackmail and ransom for the rest of their lives. My case is a prime example of that. And this is about trying to turn other people's crimes or other people's experiences or outcomes and making it my problem. Well, I'm not the problem. The people who should be having psychiatric evaluations are the fuckers running this. There are so many different ways to look at this that I don't think there's anybody even trying to resolve this or even trying to look into this. I don't think society's asking enough questions as to why are we spending tens of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money to allegedly keep people safe from what are normal society? There doesn't seem any logic, reason, or common sense behind that. It's all about not letting the victim be heard. It's all about not letting the victim put forward an argument. It's all about not having to do a job, not having to address the issues, or literally creating problems so you can deny the victim what they're entitled to in the first place. You're talking about just something Jacinda said the other day. What was it she said? Compassion. How can you have compassion within the mental health services when you're running Crown and Government departments like they're fucking lynch mobs? Don't look after one and leave the rest in the violence that it's in. It just doesn't compute with me. It really doesn't. Because what you're saying is, on one hand, we want to show compassion to mentally ill people. But within your departments, you're showing nothing but contempt towards sick, ill, mentally ill, destitute. And that's not to say that everybody in a WINS office or everybody in an ACC office is a bad person. It's just that the people who make it to the top are usually the aggressors, the extremists, the no logic, no reason, no common sense people. And they're not, I don't think they've got any communicative skills. I think they're trying to do everything behind lawyers. And I think lawyers are the major problem of why the country is the way it is. The justice system is a bloody disgrace. It's an absolute mess. But if you actually start at the top and then work your way down, instead of starting at the bottom and working your way up, then you might actually achieve something. So, you know what I mean? It's gonna, what was it Andrew Little said? It's gonna take 10 years to sort out the justice system. Well, my case under ACC, in 20 years, you haven't been able to sort it out once because you're not taking criminal charges against the staff and the management and the CEOs and the board and the cabinet ministers and the MPs and the Crown Law Office and the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Health that you need to take. That's the whole problem here. Piecemeal fashion is no good to anybody. Covering up all your crimes is no good to anybody. Because that's how you end up with disasters. Now, this is an act of war against you, Michael. Can any of you explain to me how an act of war is ever going to end peacefully? You all think silence is the answer. You can sit down in front of me in front of a video camera. You can sit down in front of me. Go live on Facebook. You're really good at that, Jacinda. Go live on YouTube. You can have me live on national TV and debate and challenge me in any way, shape or form you so like over my case. The problem is that none of you have the balls to actually sit down in front of me and have a discussion or an argument or a debate or a dispute. You're all too busy trying to hide behind fear and violence and destroy my entire life, reputation and character. No violence, no criminal history whatsoever, and this is what your terrorists turned it into. And you do it with a lot of victims, and that's the whole point that I'm trying to get to. At what point are you going to grow some logic, reason and common sense and stop all this piecemeal fashion shite? And stop wasting taxpayers' money attacking your victims and funding the criminalities of the criminals you employ? Because that's what needs to be done. Your trespass notices are being abused. Your laws and legislation have been abused. Your privacy acts have been abused. Your justice system is being abused. Your mental health acts are the most abusive system on the planet. The most abusive legislation on the planet. Everything that you do is internally investigated. That's corruption in itself. There's no impartiality, and that's something you deny your victims. So you're literally turning your victims' lives into your prisoners, your hostages, and your captives. You're holding them criminally to blackmail and ransom at all times. You're committing misfeasance in public office every day. You have no laws for criminal provocation. You've got no laws for criminal entrapment. What kind of fucked up system is it? Because you're not looking after people. You're not rehabilitating people. You're not adhering to your own policies, procedures and protocols, your own laws and legislation. You're committing your own crimes and you're making up your own rules to commit your crimes. You're committing the crimes and you're accusing the victims of the crimes you're committing. Then you're trying to get a jury to decide if the victim that you're accusing of the crimes is guilty of the crimes that you're actually committing in the first place. But you're not getting charged with the crimes you're committing because you are all as corrupt as fuck. I think that literally puts it in a nutshell. You're spending billions of dollars over the last 10 years, I would say $1 billion over the last 10 years, on all your criminalities. You have more secrecy than I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you say like, An ACC claimant has to deal with how many people using the same fucking name? David Smith. And then you're hiding all the information of their corruption and criminality behind that name that doesn't exist within the system because it's fictitious. It's a pseudonym. This is another path of how this case is run. There's no question in anybody's mind that this was made personal. There's no disputing that this was declared an act of war against me. There's no disputing that he's had me state criminal kidnapped. There's no disputing that he's reneged on 2 agreements and then instigated threats to kill straight after it. There's no disputing that your actions are criminal provocation every step of the way. There's no disputing that you have turned my life into your prisoner, your hostage, and your captive. You have held me criminally to blackmail and ransom at all times, and you've done fuck all to address my injuries. Now, I think if we go back to the Ashburton tragedy, the guy needed help, medical help and all the rest of it. He was homeless, as so many others. But the signs were there. The evidence was there that the guy was unstable. The evidence was there the guy was desperate. But you didn't have anybody that could actually see that. Takes me back to when you actually had me falsely imprisoned. And the case of Jagat Huge, where he almost got killed in his cell. And the person who was in the cell with him moved from one cell to another, done by the security guards themselves. And I was at court that day. But the day before and the day before that, I told him that he was having large and small pupils. Nobody did anything about it. I was in there for a psychiatric evaluation and I was able to diagnose a person who was psychotic, okay? And coming off drugs. You could see it a mile off. And we say, how could doctors not see that? That's the kind of fuck-ups the idiots that you employ make. And I haven't seen one investigation into that disaster. And then you deported the little guy back to Sri Lanka after you literally held him criminally to blackmail to plead guilty to something that the evidence, from what I read, proved that he didn't do. But you almost got him killed in prison, then you threw him out of the country he had a broken nose, he had a neck problem, he had a head injury, and the guy has lost his eyesight almost. He's not able to do the job that he used to do, so he doesn't get covered by ACC either. But that reminds me of exactly the extremism that has gone on within all your administrations. So you literally got rid of the problem and the little guy gets nothing. You gave him a check to leave the country that he couldn't cash because you deported him. And I think if you had checked into the case a hell of a lot further, if your police weren't such a corrupt fit-up, you would have actually seen that, from what I seen, he was being fitted up. I'm not saying that things didn't go bad between him and his wife at the time, but I think from what I now know and what I've been told is they weren't married long enough for her to even get a visa. They had split up, and then her visa was going to be cancelled, and then all of a sudden he's been accused of these crimes. She gets to stay and he gets to get kicked out. Is that how it works, Jason? You know what I mean? It's a long straw, short straw. If it's a woman, they'll always be defended, and the crimes will always be covered up of the female. You know, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than I've read, right? I'm not saying that it's all clean cut, but you almost got the little guy killed in prison because no one was qualified to diagnose him. And you had psychiatrists there, you had doctors there, you had security guards there, and it took a fucking prisoner, a kidnapped prisoner, to diagnose him. And I tried to actually get this guy out of the cell, and I tried to move into his cell just to keep him safe. You know what I mean? Because he was a nice wee guy. And I don't think he ever got in trouble with anybody in prison. He was nice to everybody. And yeah, but you see, Jagat Huge still doesn't know what happened to the person who almost killed him. No one has given him any information. He's kicked him out of the country, and your actions in kicking him out of the country were illegal and unlawful with criminal intent as well, because you had no right to travel all the way. Once you went to Australia and changed planes, then the New Zealand government had no law to travel from Australia and hold him prisoner all the way to Sri Lanka. Once he was out of New Zealand airspace, he was out of your jurisdiction, even in Australia. So that's another thing you need to look into. It's just the corruption and criminality where you break the rules and stuff like that. Anyway, that was getting a bit off track, but at the same time it was on track in relation to these people are not, they're being paid to do a job they can't do or they won't do, or there's no accountability for their wrongs. They almost got a guy killed. Regardless of what he was alleged to have done, regardless of what, he couldn't even speak English. That's another good part of it. He couldn't understand what anybody was saying. He was told he had to plead guilty and he could go home. How naive is that? So anyway, at the end of the day, the guy's been screwed. He's been left in Sri Lanka with no way of building his life or career, no way of making the money that he used to make. He doesn't get any ACC. He's got headaches day and night, and I've seen it myself, seriously. The tears are just down his face. The guy definitely has a brain injury. The guy definitely, when he broke his nose, his sinuses are all fucked up. And this is what the New Zealand government did to him after almost getting him killed. And they don't take any responsibility for anything. And it's the same for all foreign nationals in New Zealand. The New Zealand government will cover up all its crimes day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And they'll literally look to screw their victim over with everything they've got, and then try and use their legal system to literally hold their victims criminally to blackmail and ransom while they're carrying out their misfeasance in public office, abuse, threats, intimidation, violence, harassment, criminal harassment, stalking, slandering, labelling, defaming, even while carrying out their own criminal blackmail and fraud under Section B of the Crimes Act on their victims' lives. You need to sort all that out, Jacinda. You really do. But if you ever want to debate it, or you ever want to dispute it, or you ever want to argue it, you can come see me anytime. I'll leave you at that.